Welcome to the Longest Term Board Gaming Podcast. This is Snapshot Episode 2. My name is Kevin.
Hello, this is Tyson.
This is Tyler.
Yeah, so like in these Snapshot episodes, we take a quick look at a game that we really enjoy. In this Snapshot episode, we look at the game Res Arcana. We'll give a short overview of the rules, theme, what we like about the game, and where you can find it. Is this game a good fit for your friends and family? Stick around to get our thoughts because we're ready to jump into Res Arcana. So why don't we kick it over to Tyler and he'll jump into the rules.
Res Arcana is a 2019 2-4 player card and resource management engine builder game designed by Tom Lehmann and illustrated by Julian Daval. Published by Sandcastle Games and takes 30 to 60 minutes to play. Players take on the roles of rival mages creating artifacts, vying for places of power, and ancient monuments. Rounds will be played until one of the players reaches 10 victory points, then at the end of that round, whoever has the most victory points wins. Players start out the game with 5 artifact cards in their deck and 3 in their hand, 1 of each essence resource, 1 gold, a mage with a unique power, and 1 magic item. Monuments and places of power are available for purchase. They each have powers and are worth victory points, but places of power generally help players to gain more and more victory points as they are used each round. Players take turns doing one action until all players have passed and the round ends. The following actions are available. Pay the cost for artifacts in hand with essence to place the artifact on the table. Discard a card in hand for 1 gold or any 2 other essences. Purchase a monument or place of power. Use a power on a placed artifact, magic item, mage, monument, or place of power. There is a whole cauldron of powers represented in the game. Each card is unique and may have 1 or more abilities. Many cards generate resources or utilize resources. Some create victory points or refresh used cards, and others may attack or benefit other players. The last action available is to pass and draw 1 card. When a player passes, they also return their magic item and select a new one. If the game isn't over, their cards in play are refreshed for the next round. The heart of the game revolves around managing resources and optimizing card combinations. Players must carefully plan their actions to efficiently generate the necessary resources to acquire the most valuable cards and score victory points. Okay, that wraps up the rules.
I gotta say, right off the bat, one of the most impressive things I can say about Res Arcana is the fact that this is an 8-card game, essentially. Every player gets 8 cards that you draft at the start, and the fact that I'm only playing with 8 cards for the entire game is mind-blowing to me.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, it blew my mind that you could design a game like this that has so many options. And
the combinations are infinite.
Yeah, and so many things to discover. I mean, I play this game a lot, right? And I'm still finding things that I haven't done before and experimenting with different combinations that, discovering still.
I was thinking that we just played it recently, and in the last game we played, I was just thinking that. I was like, I try so many times to get engines to work and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And when you find an engine that you've not done before, it's like, wow, I can see exactly how this can work. And if it has the right place of power that you can get to it, and then just start this resource gaining engine that goes right into the type of place of power that you have, it creates this feeling of complete satisfaction of this is exactly how it's going and exactly what I wanted it to do. And it's so fun to watch that just play out and work.
Yeah, I think that's the good word, satisfying, right? It's a very satisfying game to play because when you do get those combos to work, any game that has combos and engine building, I gravitate towards. This is another Tom Lehmann game, right?
Yep.
It goes away from the Race for the Galaxy formula that he's been doing for a while, but it's still that engine building. And when you get that engine going, it is a very satisfying experience. It's really cool.
I love when a game has the option to pass and you can continue getting stuff to go. You have those combos that you just talked about, Kevin. And if I can get my combos to work, I can have extra turns to be able to continue doing stuff. And it makes me feel more efficient than anybody else because I'm going on after everybody else has passed.
Yeah. You mentioned the 8 cards, and we talked about that a little bit. I also love the monuments and the places of power that you can buy because you can start out a game of this and, you've drafted your cards as best you can and what was available to you. But then even beyond that, the monuments and the places of power allow you to do some pretty cool things. Places of power obviously give you a lot of victory points, but the monuments give you added benefits that you can do as well that might change up your strategy as well. So you're constantly evolving based on what cards come out into your hand over the course of the game.
Yeah. I love as well the efficiency puzzle that this game is. There's limited resources. They're not limited, right? But you have limited resources on your turn. You can only get a certain amount. Unless there is one game that we played that we had hundreds.
We broke the game.
We broke the game. There was hundreds of resources that we have. That's the exception. But typically you only have a certain number of resources, and eking out every resource that you can get and then barely getting that place of power on your turn is, it's awesome. It's a really cool feeling,
Well, and finding ways to get those resources and use them efficiently is critical in this game. I think one of the amazing things that it does is that discarding can be such an advantageous method in this game if you're doing it right. Because when you discard a card, it goes back into your discard pile. Now everybody can see what card you had, but it's okay because it'll come back in your deck, and your deck being an 8-card deck, and since you're getting cards out, comes smaller and smaller. So those cards can cycle through a lot faster, but you want to time it just right a lot of the time so that you can get that discard. Because maybe you want to discard a card to get the resources, but that card is valuable to you in a lot of other ways too, potentially. So the question is, do I discard the card, or do I play the card now and hope that it makes up for whatever resources I would have been able to get by discarding it? I think it makes for this really interesting decision.
Yeah.
Something else that stands out to me is how important player turn order is.
Timing.
Super important. There are times where you're racing for a place of power. You can see someone else building up the same resources that you're going after, and it's like, oh, I gotta get that place of power before they do. Or if it's closer to the end of the game, you get a bonus point if you're the first person to pass. And sometimes that has triggered the winner many of the games that we've played, where someone got the final point by passing first that got them to 10, and then it was enough for them to hang on to the victory.
Similarly with turn order, though, that another situation in where that is important is you're trying to ensure that you get all the resources in time, because somebody might have a dragon, and you might have to watch out, because if you do not get your resources spent in time, you could potentially lose those resources.
Or you got to try and pass before they play the dragon.
Right.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. There is a little bit of take that in this game, right? So the dragons will potentially force you to lose resources. Like, how do you guys feel about the take that in this game, though?
It doesn't bother me at all. I think I've had one game where someone just went totally overboard with it, and that wasn't that fun, but props to that person who played that way.
Yeah.
I think it's balanced out in some ways as well, because there's take that in that you could spend the dragon to take away resources, but there's a number of cards in this game, and there's enough of them that it happens regularly enough that other players' actions can give you resources. So it's kind of this balance, this push and pull. And in fact, we've had games where, because somebody has an engine that gives you resources, it feeds into negate the negative effects of the take that could occur because you're getting resources.
What do you think about it, Kevin?
I think it just adds another layer of strategy to the game, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many ways that the game provides to mitigate those attacks that it's not that big of a deal. It just adds a little thing in the back of your mind, like you said, Tyler. It's like, or Tyson. It's like, I've got to spend these resources now or I may lose them, yes, right? It just adds more depth to the game, which I think is a good thing. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And if you really want to protect yourself against those dragons, then make sure you have the resources that you pay only one calm resource in order to negate that instead of losing 4 resources, right? So you can prepare for it, you can mitigate it, and the game provides for a lot of those situations. So.
There are points in time while you're playing this game where it's like, okay, I could go down this route and spend my resources this way. I can't guarantee a win that way, or I can go down this route. Neither way you can guarantee the win, but that decision is very exciting. Like which path do I go, right? Do I try and build up my gold, or do I spend my gold on this card and get something, victory points that way? Or there's a lot of decision points throughout the game where you're making critical choices that will affect the outcome and your chances of winning. And I think this game does such an awesome job of that. Going back to the 8 cards again, I remember the first time you taught me this game, Kevin, I was like, wait, we only have 8 cards? This is stupid.
Right.
What am I going to be able to do with these 8 cards?
Yeah, right. That's a ridiculous game.
And come to find out that I feel like there's never-ending combos of cards that you can draft, and each game experience is very different. You can obviously pick certain cards that you'll follow a similar strategy every time you have those cards. But
Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, right. But each game is so different based on the combo of cards that you get. You can do it random, or there's starter decks that you can start with. Hey, you've played this a few times, now draft your cards.
And I think the best way to play is drafting, I think, once you're familiar enough with the cards.
Absolutely.
But I also think just getting a random set of cards and playing with those is a fun way to play as well. You can get completely hosed and not get anything that has synergies. But I've played that way multiple times, and I've found combos that I didn't even think existed because I was given a random set of cards. And I'm like, okay, here's what I got. What can I do with it? And then when you can get that to work, it's like, that's great. That's awesome. I love it.
It's an interesting equalizer, right? Because it's a good way to introduce a new player to this game. Yeah. And if everybody at the table has never played this game, it's great because you familiarize yourself with the game and the card and everybody's equalized. But even when you have very experienced players playing with brand new players, it's a great equalizer. And nobody gets to choose and cater what they get. They have to make do with what they have been dealt.
Yeah.
The game's infinitely variable and changes on every experience that I've played this game.
I do think it's interesting. There are times where you're playing all your cards and you're getting them all out and it feels really good, but there's no synergy there across your cards.
Where are my victory points?
Or with the place of power. Yeah, and you can lay a goose egg. I mean, not really a 0, but you can score a very mediocre score even though you've got your whole deck out.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance there for sure.
I love the art in this game. It's
great.
Awesome. I love that the box was designed with the 2 expansions that we have, or that the game has in mind. There are slots that are perfectly designed for the components from both expansions. And I think that's really cool.
Those components are wonderful quality, different shapes for each token, and colors are really good, vibrant colors that pop. The insert, like you said, Tyler, is really well designed so that it makes it playable as well as storable.
Right. You pull that tray out and you got the components, all the resources ready to go.
And the expansions, you referenced the expansions. They're great, right? They're expansions that add just a little bit more to the game. They're not too complicated. You kind of put them in and just go. And I think they add a lot more strategic depth to the game with each expansion that's added. So if you like this type of engine building game, obviously I think any game that Tom Lehmann designs may be a good place to go as well. Race for the Galaxy, Roll for the Galaxy, Jump Drive, those other types of games are good engine builders that he has designed. But there's also other games that other designers have done that are similar.
Well, and I mean, this is the second episode in our Snapshot series. In our first episode of Snapshot series, we talked about 51st State. It's an engine building resource management game, and it looks like that we're on this engine building kind of a kick right now with our Snapshot episodes. So if you like the same kind of game, if you tried out 51st State and you haven't tried out Res Arcana, then give that a try as well. They both, I think, share some of the same lineage in what they can do. You can find this game pretty much all over. It's found on, I found it on Amazon and local game stores as well as Target, your bigger game stores like Miniature Market, etc. And it's for everything that this game packs into it, it's really good value at what it is. It's listing around $25 to $30 in the US, and that I think is a phenomenal value for what is in here for the components that are in. Like, I'm very impressed by what this game has to offer in such a little package, and yet it is continually providing me new experiences. And the price of admission on this one and the amount of experience I've gotten out of this game, I've earned it back in spades.
Good bang for your buck.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning that it's available on Board Game Arena with the first expansion, Lux et Tenebrae. It does not have the second expansion, but check it out on Board Game Arena. Give it a try.
Even better, join our group on Board Game Arena. We'll get in the game with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You send a message to us and we'll play this game anytime with you.
So that closes out our Snapshot episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out our full-length episodes. We discuss games that we've been playing, do deep dives and feature reviews, share top 5 lists on a variety of board game topics, and discuss all things board game related. For even more longest turn, check out our Discord server, Board Game Geek blog and guild, Instagram, and Twitter. All links and information are included in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Use a power on a placed artifact. Buh.